Christopher Dunn's findings have stirred endless debate, challenging the way we view the ancient world. Were the Egyptians merely master artisans, or was there something more? Advanced technology, lost to time? The secrets of Egypt continue to elude us, but with every discovery, we inch closer to uncovering the truth of their incredible knowledge and artistry. When the British engineer, Christopher Dunn, visited Egypt in the 90s, he stood in front of the statue of Ramses II at the Museum of Memphis and made an unusual observation that the statue's nostrils are almost identical, but he saw it as a sign of the Egyptian sculptor's skill. The image of the statue of Memphis remained imprinted in his mind for 8 years until he returned to Egypt to specifically study the statues. He was focused on studying one piece: the head of the statue of Ramses II in Luxor Temple. Using the camera, he took dozens of photos of the statue from different angles. When he imported the photos to a computer and began to study them, he reached surprising results that he hadn't expected. These results led him to come up with a controversial hypothesis: that the ancient Egyptians possessed advanced techniques and tools with which they were capable of carving statues. And the tools used in the sculpture have still not been discovered. Despite dozens of studies that have been carried out, we are still unable to fully understand the challenge of these statues. 6. The statues. To better understand this episode better, kindly watch both episodes of A4, the obelisks, and A5, the serapeum. Before the advent of satellites, computers, and technology, we wouldn't have known the marvels existed in ancient Egypt. For example, without the presence of planes and cameras, we would not know that the Great Pyramid has 8 faces, not 4. Technology has helped us understand artifacts better. The Egyptian civilization produced a huge number of statues, which is difficult to quantify, but it could reach many thousand statues of kings, gods, scribes, and ministers. Some characters have numerous numbers of statues. For example, we have the Avenue of Sphinxes between Karnak and Luxor. Once upon a time, it contained more than 1,200 statues of the Sphinx. Sekhmet, the goddess or Nr, of war, disease, and healing in the temple of Amenhotep III, 106 statues were discovered of her over 13 years, and there are still more underground, not to mention the statues that got outside Egypt. Turin Museum has a hall named Sekhmet Hall. It contains about 18 statues of Sekhmet, and most Europe and US known museums have a large number of Sekhmet statues. King Ramses II and King Amenhotep III both have hundreds of statues, and some of the gigantic sizes. Most of them are made of hard rocks such as granite, basalt, and quartzite. Although these stones are difficult to cut and carve, and the proof is that we are currently in the era of technology and advanced tools, and still, we have a very limited number of these large granite statues. We can all agree on the artistic beauty of Egyptian statues, but the thing that also draws attention is the engineering precision, which we talked about in the last episode. This precision not only appears in the pyramids, obelisks, and coffins, but also the statues. The point is that it is difficult to be measured because the statues do not have standard shapes that are easy to measure. Rather, they are complex shapes that are intertwined with each other. When engineer Chris Dunn visited Luxor Temple and saw the granite-carved head of the statue of Ramses II, he noticed a high proportion of similarity between the two sides of the face, but he was not sure, and wanted to prove it. How something like this could be measured? He got the idea of photographing the statue from its center lines. Then to study it later, the computer, he brought a tripod. He fixed the camera exactly where the statue was so that the camera grid center of lines would be exactly in the focal point of the statue's nose. He took several pictures. When he started studying it, the dimensions show the symmetry of the face. We will go one step further to confirm this match. As Dunn had made, we get a picture of the statue and we duplicate it, then we convert it to a negative version to make the lines more visible. Then we add the transparency property and compare them together. Match between the two sides and the jaw line of the statue's face. To sculpt the face of the statue of Ramses in this form, it was necessary to have a cutting and measuring mechanism. The question here is whether this is a 100% match. The fact that nothing in the world that is 100% precise. A percentage of error must always occur, and if we looked thoroughly we will notice a minor deviation in the fake. The beard, by the way, the statue's head is large, not small, and this raises questions about the technique used to carve a massive block of hard granite, which eventually looks like this. Archaeologists, references, museums, and universities all claim that a dolerite stone like this was used to cut, sculpt, and polish the granite statues. Obelisks were carved with dolerite, coffins were carved with dolerite, and statues were also carved with dolerite. I wonder how everything was carved out with only a dolerite stone. I am pretty sure that those who invented these methods didn't apply or sculpt a statue using them, because if they had tried it, they would have filmed it and published the results everywhere. And these results would be conclusive evidence that the statues were carved with primitive tools. If we assume that dolerite stone was used, the utmost use of it will be only in cracking the main block, for example. An artifact like this, it's an incomplete statue in Cairo Museum. I believe this is the ultimate that dolerite can do, and I doubt that it would even reach this stage, but the problem will arise in the second stage, which is carving the details and shaping the features. Dolerite stone cannot do that. Limestone statue of Ramses II in Memphis, one of the most magnificent and massive statues. Its original length is about 10 meters. When the statue was discovered in 1820, Muhammad Ali, the ruler of Egypt at the time, granted the statue to the British Museum, but due to the high cost of transporting and insuring the statue, the museum apologized for not accepting the gift due to the large budget required, and it remained there for many years. It was extremely costly for the Egyptian Antiquities Authority to relocate it, so they decided to keep it in its original location and build a museum around it. The features of the statue's face are sharp and beautiful. We want to conduct the same experiment on him. There is a feature found in all cameras and phones called grid overlay. This feature helps you to take a precise photo by adjusting the lines on the object you want to photograph. But this feature, whether on cameras or mobiles, is very limited until I had the idea of creating a program that could be downloaded onto a phone or tablet and display a set of lines. But in a better way, I collaborated with some colleagues to create a concept for a program called Symmetry for mobile and tablet devices. It currently works on the iPad, but there are still issues running it on the phone. But God willing, they are on their way to being fixed. In a nutshell, the program will display a collection of detailed reference lines in the form of circles or lines. You can control their number, shape, and color so that they would be more visible on a black basalt or rose granite statue. For example, it also ensures that photos are symmetrical. The program's flaw is that it is reliant on the camera on your mobile device, which has a limited photographic capability compared to digital cameras, especially when zooming. But it gets better and evolves over time, and I am sure that mobiles one day will be the complete replacement for the camera. This is the same program that we used to photograph the broken obelisk of Hatshepsut before. We will use it today in the statues. You run the program and choose the circles or the grid. Both will serve you the same purpose. You allow the center line to pass between your eyes and nostrils. Then you take one or more pictures. The computer function will then appear and confirm whether the match between the two halves of the face is genuine. I chose 5 random points in the face to match. You may also pause this video and select any point on the face to compare the right and left sides. It's not just about symmetry, it's also about the beauty of the details of the face and features. There are paths for sculpting lips and eyes as part of a circle. Despite the statue was carved from limestone, which is softer than granite, the proportions of its face, despite its large size, will remain a mystery. What is the most general definition of sculpture? The sculpture is the removal of stone. This is a process that no one can undo. No one will be able to return the face statue together once a piece is removed. To create Ramses' face according to these specifications, the sculptor must ensure that the stone removal between the right and left sides was done appropriately. Therefore, it is not an exaggeration when we say that advanced tools, machines, or technology were used. And when we say technology, it doesn't have to be the same stereotype of our technology. However, something of a similar level, something advanced, must be capable of performing the task. Over more than 2 years, I made this symmetrical visualization on nearly 40 carved statues and sarcophagi in different museums and temples. A high level of accuracy is visible and tangible in certain statues, while others not. For example, the statue of Amenhotep III in the British Museum, Hathor in the Luxor Museum, Nefertiti, both sides of Khafre's face, and many others also. Coffins are more accurate than statues. Some statues have obvious flaws that don't require the use of a camera to demonstrate, such as Thutmose III's statue in the Luxor Museum. Regardless of its artistic beauty, but many statues and coffins with perfect symmetry shows that there was a design and sculpture school that they followed, using the same methods. From Delta to Aswan, we agreed that there is no such absolute sculpting precision. But when we say that the inaccuracy factor is low, that it cannot be detected easily with the naked eye and requires computer programs to detect it, this makes me wonder whether the statues were carved by hand using chisels and stones, or another way all the previous photos and matching were two-dimensional. That they were photographed with a camera. The study of the statues in 2 dimensions is insufficient and does not give the statues their worth. If we want to understand it better, we need to see it in 3D. To study the statues in 3D, you must scan them as if you're putting the statue into your device. Of course, 3D scanning is still a relatively new technology, and the devices are either extremely expensive or impractical. Some devices, for example, must be connected to the laptop while performing the scan. This will not be allowed in the museum, and permits will be required. Other devices must be static, while the statue rotates. Of course, this will not work. I won't be able to borrow the statue from the museum for a while. Set it spinning and scan it. So I researched a bit and found that this device would be ideal. This device is called a structured sensor. It must be installed and connected to a tablet to function. In a nutshell, the device emits light that strikes objects. The camera receives the light reflected from the objects again and begins drawing data on the screen in the form of a 3-dimensional model. I spent a long time and effort scanning some statues. Unfortunately, the outcome was not ideal. There is limitations into the scanning device. For example, it is impossible to scan statues placed in daylight. Also, if the lighting is poor, as in most museums, the scan fails, and if the statues were all the same color, such as basalt statues, it would not work because the scan process relies on color differentiation. You have no complete control over the scanning process, and the resulting model is either incomplete or distorted because of color. The model is incomplete because of brightness. The model is distorted. In brief, I did some things with it, but the result was not satisfactory. As a result, we had to eliminate this method and find another one. The alternative method takes longer but produces better results, and it depends on taking multiple pictures of the statue's details from various angles. With the camera, the number of photos per statue can be up to 100. Then you import it into a photo editing program called PhotoScan, and there are several steps to complete, but in the end, you collect all of these photos and it exports a 3D model of the statue to achieve good results. Long training in this process is required. And, to be honest, I still have a long way to go before building a reliable model. However, some professionals and museums make their work available on the internet. Sketchfab is the most well-known 3D modeling website. It has a gallery of thousands of statues from all civilizations, and you will find all the famous pieces such as Nefertiti, Menkaure statues, Rosetta Stone, and others. I'll be using a model of Ramses II statue from the British Museum's library here. This statue was discovered in the Temple of the Ramesseum in Luxor, and it was relocated to Britain in the early 19th century. This part of the statue weighs approximately 7 tons and is made of rose granite. The 3D model allows you to view the statue from all sides. Thankfully, the face is intact. However, the crown and the Menemes cover are broken, but the facial features are fine. This statue is similar to the 2 Ramses statues we previously saw, with symmetric features and congruence between the 2 halves of the face. In the 1990s, British engineer Christopher Dunn visited Egypt and stood before the magnificent statue of Ramses II at the Memphis Museum. While most saw a masterpiece, Dunn's sharp eye noticed something unusual. The nostrils were nearly identical, an extraordinary feat of symmetry that hinted at the remarkable skill of the ancient Egyptian sculptor. This observation planted a seed in Dunn's mind, one that would grow for years. It would take him 8 more years before he returned to Egypt to delve deeper into the secrets of these statues.